Let's address the damn elephant in the room right away. You can't look at OTXO and not think of one of the greatest indies of all time. Hell, if you ask me, it's one of the greatest games of all time. Hotline Miami, that's right. The psychedelic pixelated visuals shown to us from a top-down perspective, the thumping electronic soundtrack, and of course the visceral blood and violence as you attempt to clear room after room of gun-wielding maniacs by any means possible. Developer Lateralis Heavy Industries isn't stupid, they know exactly what they're doing, and honestly, I think I love them all the more for it. In fairness, OTXO may share much of its DNA with the series I promise I won't mention again in this review, but it certainly does a good amount to stand out on its own. With a story told through a black and white lens similar to something along the lines of Sin City, OTXO begins on a subway where someone drops something, maybe it's a mask, your character puts that thing on, and next thing you know you wake up on a beach in front of a mansion. This is apparently a fairly common occurrence in this bizarre world, and so now your lover who was traveling with you is trapped in this mansion, and you'll need to go on a bloody killing spree to go and save her. It's crazy and over the top, but I love the vibe of this game. The story is dark and twisted, and it left me truly feeling trapped in some sort of messed up game of life and death. But for as cool as the narrative setup is, it's the gameplay of OTXO that really steals the show. Your goal is to progress further into the mansion by taking out enemies that are strategically placed around a map. Think of each map as its own individual level. How you approach each area is really up to you. You can kick down doors as enemies walk by, or go in guns blazing. You can also take a more strategic approach, carefully crawling along and striking while the iron's hot. But you won't survive by just kicking everyone in the face, though I suppose you could try. The guns and other gadgets that are strewn about these areas are going to come in handy and can also be retrieved off of fallen foes. Grabbing weapons with the left trigger and then shooting with the right trigger feels excellent in OTXO, as does aiming, which I found to be incredibly responsive even on a controller. The options menu will also allow you to remap the controls and adjust the crosshair speed so you can make the game as comfortable as you wish. But you'll need every bit of your reactive skills in OTXO, as enemies are extremely quick and can turn the tide of any gun battle in an instant. Lucky for you, the odds can be evened up a bit. By using your focus, you'll slow down time, giving you the ability to weave around enemy fire and strike at the right moment. Focus is limited, however, and will need to recharge for a bit when it's been used up. This mechanic is so much fun and almost reminded me a bit of the good old Max Payne days. It's extremely satisfying to take down baddies in slow motion, but also adds an element of strategy that has a major impact on the gameplay as a whole. And don't worry, if you escape one room by the skin of your teeth, your health bar located at the bottom right corner of the screen will replenish in the next room. So this game is not quite as punishing as that game I won't mention again. But it's still tough. Need some incentive to perform well? Pulling off combos will net you more coins, which are used to make your character stronger. Between maps, you'll come across a bartender who serves up delicious cocktails that add a variety of perks to your character. He won't serve you while armed with a weapon, however, so be sure to toss that thing aside, because you gotta be respectful around these parts, I guess. Outside of cocktails, you can also invest coins into future drinks, which will be made available only once you've invested enough cash. As you progress further, you can even opt out of certain weapons being available, but whichever you opt into, your enemies will have access to as well. It's just one more thing to consider. Should you die in the mansion, and you will, yeah, it's gonna be back to the start. You knew it was coming. Come on now, rogue elements. Now, I often find it extremely deflating when games pull stuff like this, but honestly, OTXO is just so damn fun to play that I didn't mind the gameplay loop as much. Let's face it, this is video games now, and Rogue isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You love it or you hate it, but either way, with 8 areas to explore, each ending in a boss battle and featuring a total of well over 100 rooms, OTXO will almost certainly have you saying, "Give me just one more run." Just as this game is a joy to play, the visuals are equally impressive. The black and white color palette mixed with bright red blood looks incredible, though some of the menus don't quite mesh as well with the rest of the game, particularly the main menu and all of the options available on it. A small nitpick, yes, but worth noting. It's a pixelated bloody mess, and I'm mostly here for it. Unfortunately, I did have a few moments where my frame rate would randomly tank and I'd get a bunch of screen tearing, but it just didn't happen all that often to really be a concern or to screw me up. But still, it was a bit distracting whenever it did. Hopefully this is a bug that can be ironed out in time for release, though it's far from game-breaking like I mentioned. It's also worth noting that the game does feature some flashing lights which can be turned off in the options menu. It's not super egregious in this title, but definitely worth mentioning for those that may be deterred by those types of visual effects. On Steam Deck, OTXO also performs really well outside of the same screen-tearing bug, but the large screen and excellent sticks of the deck really lend itself well to this style of gameplay, so once I started playing that way, it honestly became my personal preferred method. So then, for all this carnage, one needs a hard-hitting soundtrack, right? You'll get it here with some outstanding thumping electronic music that's exceptional for its genre and goes along perfectly with the gameplay. I was concerned at first because the opening moments of the game featured little to no music, but once that bass dropped, I was sold, hook, line, and sinker. This OST is bomb, with punchy bass and phenomenal melodies that I could definitely see myself listening to even outside of playing OTXO. It's a soundtrack that belongs in your collection if you're a fan of intense electronica. So then, if you've loved the game I promised I wouldn't mention in this review again, OTXO is a no-brainer. The fast and frantic gameplay mixed with a great visual presentation and outstanding soundtrack make this one of my favorite games of 2023. It's tough yet manageable, and yes, repetitive as rogue games tend to be, but trust me when I say you won't mind having to go back in for multiple runs on this one. If you're a fan of this genre, do yourself a favor and add this title to your collection sooner rather than later. OTXO earns a golden genie lamp of approval from me. Check this title out and have yourself a bloody good time.